What the elite did is they separated the various what we call hermetic arts into separate groups. The idea is to actually group them all together, and then you'll get an overall picture of what life is actually about. Astrology, when you have a look at the layout, it's laid out into 12 signs or 12 segments of a circle. And it's very important to understand with astrology, the circle is far more powerful than looking at it as in a straight line from Aries all the way through to Pisces. You really want to look at it in a circle, because once you limit life to a straight line, a beginning and an end, it becomes very fatalistic. Whereas if you start understanding everything in a circle or a cycle, you then realize, although you might start off at Aries, finish off at Pisces, it changes its cycle, it moves into a new pattern. So you want to divide a circle up into 12 parts. And then the 12 parts are divided basically into half, or 6 are divided into the dark or night half, and the other 12 are into the masculine or solar half. Now these 12, when we look at these signs, let's not get too far ahead when I look at astrology. Astrology is divided into 12 signs. Now, signs are what they call the NASA, or whoever puts it out, calls it a constellation, a fixed constellation. Now, these constellations each constellation consists of a group of stars, not all the same amount of stars, but they have stars where in that particular, any one constellation, there's what we call a ruling star or a major or the boss star, if you want to call it that. Now, those stars are actually those, let's call them clans. They actually define the inner world, the inner makeup of life, the core, the root of life. And it's ironic that these words root, core, inner are described not just in astrology, but many sciences, many paths. And those actually define the different clans or the different, although astrology talks of 12, there's actually 13. But we generally will look at 12 signs. That's the accepted norm, and it's functional. The 13 is not an individual separate sign within those 12. It's actually it actually is a group. So the 13th is a group. And then those are actually these signs, or these what we call rulers, these groups, these clans, actually define the 12 different clans within Inner Earth.
Right. So can you get into Inner Earth for us, please?
Yeah. Now, Inner Earth, I don't have a picture of an astrology chart. I could probably send you one. But if you have a look at the layout of an astrology chart, you'll observe that it has an outer ring where you've got your signs, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and so forth. Then just inside that usually is a second ring. That's the houses. That's something different. And then you've got the space where what we see the angles of one star to another, and there's usually lines in there. And then you've got the inner ring where everybody puts a lot of astrologers will put the name of the person whose chart it is with their various details. The irony is, if you actually look at this from a bird's eye view, you would observe that the signs are those stars out in the night sky. And as you come in closer, that inner ring actually defines the hole in the North Pole, which goes into Agartha.
Right.
And within there is an inner sun.
Right. If you look at the Aztec calendar as well, it
Yes.
also applies to that, doesn't it?
Correct. With a major 4-part cross, or else you've got your angled cross. Yes.
So that's 2 calendars in different parts of the world that correspond to each other.
Correct. They're all telling the same story, just slightly differently.
Yeah.
And then we have a big fight. This one's got this type of philosophy. It doesn't agree with us. We've got the right philosophy. They've got the wrong philosophy. They're all telling the same story.
I know. That's what I've uncovered anyway, that I've realised that they're all just telling the same story. Doesn't matter if it's the Quran, if it's the Bible.
Correct. The Bible's been told, how many times has the story of the Bible been told?
I know.
What's it, 16 times now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us a bit about the inner earth and what you know about Agartha? Oh,
When I don't know if you've ever looked at the. I wonder if I should get into this right now. All right, inner earth. You've got. Let's take your 12 different signs. We can also call them clans. Now, those 12 signs or clans relate to the groups or the parties or the different species. There's 12 different species.
is this the 12
I keep
tribes of
saying
Israel?
these are what we call the lost tribes of Israel. Correct.
Right, right.
Correct. And they appear lost at the same time when Atlantis went down. The sinking of Atlantis.
Yes.
Well, Atlantis didn't sink; it went into inner Earth.
Right.
So when they talk of it as being under the Atlantic waters, well, yes, it is. If you look at Agartha, it is underwater, but it's not underwater as in covered with waters.
Yeah.
It's under the waters.
Right. It's like how
Much
they
like we
talk
get
about the
under your.
cities being underneath America and things like that, under LA and stuff. They don't mean under LA, they mean basically what as above, so below.
That is a very, yes, that as above, so below describes as above is us here above on the terrestrial or the surface. We are the above, and Agartha or inner earth is the below.
And this is alchemy as well and everything.
It all starts tying in once you start looking at this picture. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. These 12 signs are what we call the gods. And those gods, the origin of astrology comes from inner earth. So what the result is, you can't go up to these major big cheeses and just demand. They've got their own whole life that they're running. They're managing this entire place. And we want to go and ask or supplicate for something of our need. That's rather rude.
So do these inner earth beings, do they control the surface population?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And that's where we tend to knock the elite the whole time. I'm not saying the elite are great guys, but I am saying that the elite are actually controlled by these guys. These guys are actually the boss of the elite.
Yeah.
And again, there's 12, 13 of them. Remember, we're going to talk of 12, but there's actually 13. Let's just stick with the 12 because we're dealing with the subject. So these 12 guys are the boss of this place. Yes.
And we
individual.
Know that you don't get sacked from that position if you don't follow it, you know. It's not
you
like
don't get sacked,
you get a sufferance pay and all that. So yeah, I think if you didn't go along with it, I think that'd be the end, and they'd never see you again.
Well, we as terrestrial or earth beings do not belong there. It's not our domain. So yeah, I would say, that's like you're allowed up to this line and no further.
So
there is wars going on. There's also peace going on. That's why with astrology, you'll see that different angles, what we call them aspects in astrology. Very simply, those are angles. Now, when certain angles or certain events or certain things occur, it's because a specific angle has taken place. And that angle is either constructive or destructive for existence, for living. And you could call that war. Now, we assume that's one party or one clan going to war with another. No, it's not necessarily that type of war. That's how we assume wars are over here. But if you will take two speakers, you've got two speakers and you turn them to each other at an angle, you'll notice that where those sound waves cross, it distorts, it lessens, it doesn't function. That's a war.
So have you ever travelled to anywhere where there's caverns or entrances to the inner earth?
Yes, I have. I've been to the Himalayas.
Yeah.
I started off in Patal Bhuvaneswar. Is that where the caves are? There's an entrance to the Himalayas, and it's actually closed off during the day, and it's run or controlled by a Hindu priest.
Right.
And he takes you down there. You have to actually come as groups. You're not going to go as a little group. You have to arrange large groups. And when we went from South Africa, there was 8 of us, and we joined up with a group in India. And we went as a large group of people, and we went down these caves, but we were only allowed to a certain point.
Yeah.
They claimed then it was blocked off and we couldn't go any further. Well, I now know that's not true.
Right.
When you have a look at these hybrids, you want to call them hybrids, some of them are the real, some of the big cheeses that come out, but these hybrids are only the guys who get into these top positions, not an average folk like you. We're not going to get into those positions. You have to be a high-class hybrid. Not even the average hybrid is going to get up to that position. And again, you're elected. Prince Philip, between 1947 and 1949, you'll see he has a specific coat of arms, and each of the royal family, the current royal family on the English side of the world, you'll have a look, each one gets given their own coat of arms. And those coat of arms, again, tell you about astrology. And when you start dissecting it, you will realize that that actually tells you who the different clans are. Those two supporters on the side of those coat of arms are actually the supporters, what we call supporters, or the lower caste, the lower in the hierarchy, the lower in this 13 family.
You can tell.
The two supporters actually show you the alliance.
Yeah.
So that's why you'll see with Prince Philip, on the one side, you've got the lion, and on the other side, you've got the Neanderthal, which represents the human race,
right,
the human species. And then the lion, which is their type of people or their clan. And then there was an alliance formed.
right.
So while we assume that every human is like against the royal family, or they don't like their clan, what they're doing, no, there's actually alliances, and the alliances are ultimately for progress, not necessarily what we'd like to see, what we don't classify as personal winning, but you've got to look at it on a larger picture. It's going cycle after cycle after cycle, evolution, or this development or upgrading of the human species.
Yeah, and you point.
Yeah, different guys came up for different reasons. Different clans came up for different reasons, and it is about progress at the end of the day.
So are they teaching us about their religion? Is this their religions? The Kabbalah and the Edda? The Norse
You could,
religion?
yes, you could say it's their religion. It's like, if we're going to learn how to use a stove, you're going to learn how to cook.
Yeah.
You're going to be forced to learn how to use how that stove plate works, whether it's high, whether it's low. So you're going to learn how to use their principles, their philosophy, their system.
Yeah.
You're governed by that system, which they have and they understand. And they simply passing it on to you, say, use this, and this is how you go about it.
And then the church demonized pagan worship, as they called it, and then told us it was the devil. And is that how it worked? And then they came along trying to save humanity? Or are they bad people, good people?
You tell a child not to put its finger on a hot plate or into fire or into a plug because it's going to burn. So the child believes from the parent that that plug or that stove plate is now demonized. It's demonized for your level of comprehension. Once you progress beyond that, where you actually start understanding a bit more, it's no longer demonized. Then you start understanding, but it's actually got power that I can utilize to advantage.
Right.
So it's demonized for a particular level of comprehension.
Yeah.
So we're talking always on intellect or comprehension or understanding. So according to that, things get demonized or things get exposed.
So if they control the earth, and they've controlled the earth for thousands of years,
yes,
why is the wars then? Is that just to thin the herd?
The wars come about because people become egotistical about what they believe is right and wrong. We need to get rid of the concept of right and wrong. That's a more open-minded. For a child, you'll tell him something's good or something's bad. But as you get older, those lines blur and it becomes more gray, and you start realizing it's not just pure bad or pure good. So the level of consciousness, the level of understanding of most people are still on the this is mine and that's yours.
Yeah.
We've got to go beyond that. And this is why the elite or the aliens or these other gods are waiting for the right time to expose themselves. It's because we're going to demonize them.
Yeah.
They're not all bad.
Mm-hmm.
just don't interfere and step on their toes when you enter their terrain or into their space. I'm talking when they come here onto Earth.
Yes.
We've been, our safety or our natural inherent protective measures have been broken down purposefully, that we will be walking in a mall and you can have people brushing past you, and that's acceptable. The truth is that's not acceptable. If you look in nature, if you go into anywhere in nature, no two species and even same species and two separate clans can come close to each other. You need to give each other space, otherwise you will be bitten. Yeah. Lion's Rock, when you have a look at that picture there from a distance, I've given you a series or a group of pictures there. When you look at Lion's Rock, you'll see that it just looks like a average mountain, cliff faces that you can't climb up. But as you get close, or let's take it and then you move to the side, you'll actually notice it no longer looks like a lion's rock. It actually looks like another dinosaur species head. And then those claws at the entrance, that's not lion's claws. And there's a video, I sent you the link on that YouTube video that you could attach and tell people to go and have a look at his video. He did the whole video. It's not my work. Go and have a look at the video, and he describes it in depth about those lion's claws. But they're not actually lion's claws. And you start realizing very quickly that's another species.
Yeah.
Because those 3 toes, a lion has got 4 toes. These 2 feet have got 3 toes, and the nails are different from a lion's nails. He says there in the video that those nails are permanently protruded. A lion's nails are not permanently protruded, not in a resting position like us. And that was a particular group of people who lived there many long time ago, thousands of years ago. They lived in this place.
What country is this?
Sigiriya, I'm not sure what country. I'm not sure what country it is in. Sigiriya, I'm not sure where Sigiriya is.
Yeah, so could that be like an entrance to somewhere, you think? Or was it somewhere important? Was it a tomb?
When we talk of entrances, we tend to look for caves.
Yes.
But an entrance can also be what we call a stargate, or an opening into another dimension.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, we can talk about stargates where they actually are openings into a so-called solid wall, and you just need certain equipment to actually open up these gates. So you've got different things there that could open you up into another dimension. But this was the abode of these people.
Do you know how to do that?
Get into other dimensions.
To Stargate, yeah.
Stargate requires, there's different methods. Sometimes it's words. This is why the open sesame or the password came about. Sometimes passwords would do it. When the Egyptians, the large pyramid, the Great Pyramid,
yeah,
in front of the Sphinx was actually 2 doors that they were enormously heavy, that would be opened. You couldn't physically push them open, no matter how much force you used. But a certain mantra, a certain chant would open those doors.
Wow.
So
it's
you'll
also
get
like
stargates.
Tibetan, where they're allowed to move things with sound as well.
Yes.
Have you heard
yes.
of that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds very similar.
Yes. Which is also one possibility, is how they built the pyramids is through sound, how they move those blocks through sound and not necessarily through physical hard manual labor.
Wow. Yeah, that's mad. Also, you sent the church ceiling pictures. Was that to replicate the hollow earth? Was that to pick?
I said
the church ceiling pictures or the cathedrals?
That's to do with astrology. Yes, that's to do with inner earth. And this is where, if you get in an astrology chart, you've got your circle of 12. But then the 12 is divided into half. So you've got 6 upper, 6 lower. But then again, you've got the basic vertical line, which divides again, 6 on the left and 6 on the right. Now, these 4 parts, very, very important. They are the foundation, or what they call the cardinal points, which takes you back and you start questioning then, well, why or what is the real function of a cardinal in a church? We just think that they're just some office that they've been given. We don't realize how high their office is. And these 4, or this cross, is actually the cardinals or the rulers. And that's where you could start looking as to now, well, who are the actual rulers in the 12 or 13 clans in inner earth? You've got your cardinal rulers, and that would be these 4 that dictate to everybody else.
Right.
So that these churches were built by very, very clever people. And those designs will actually tell you, that's what mythology is all about. So mythology in the Christian era would have been in the churches. Mythology in other stories with the Red Indians, with the Tibetans, with the Chinese, with the Indians. That's their form of storytelling. Christianity uses the church, and those are mythologies that they're teaching. And yes, the origins of it are in inner earth.
Right.
That's the source.
Yeah.
Runes come from a different clan to astrology.
Right.
That's why you've got different sciences. You don't only want to take one science, because then you're limiting yourself to one clan of education.
Yeah.
You really want to take in as many of the clans as you can. So you don't want to separate your clan information. You want to join them all up.
Yeah.
So the runes would have come from a particular people. Now, runes relate to the spoken word or the written word.
Yes.
But again, what is nice about the runes when you understand astrology's, I'm a bit biased in this, but astrology really gives a much more wholesome picture, but it doesn't give a complete picture.
Yes.
There are secrets that are taken out, that have been lost.
Yes.
Now with the runes are the spoken and the written language. Now, when you look at runes, you don't want to, and this is where I want to bring in the astrology aspect. When you look at a sign, any star sign you choose, is made up of many stars which make up the constellation or the group. Now, each of those stars in that constellation highlight or point or will define a particular aspect. In that overall constellation, you've got one ruler, one big boss, if you want to call it that. So when you look at the runes, while you're looking at an individual rune and it would have this word or this concept attached to it, in actual fact, there are many concepts that are not highlighted because there's just too many stars. There's too many ideas. So they give you the main concept. But when you start understanding that those concepts carry with them other energies, you'll realize how much deeper the runes go. So you don't want to limit it to only the boss of the company. You want to see how his other hierarchy works and take off their talents, their abilities.
Yeah. Tabletop mountains. You sent a lot of pictures of tabletop mountains as well.
Yeah, tabletop mountain. There's another video. I didn't send you the link on that. There's another video, a YouTube video. There's I think it's done by a Russian guy, and then there's a voiceover, bit more, because he speaks in broken English, the guy who put the video together. Then he's got a woman, whether he asked her, whether the woman the lady very kindly put the video together. She voiced over in a bit more comprehensible English the story of this table mountain, or yeah, she voiced over this. And if you go and look at that video, that's a very interesting video where you will realize that Table Mountain, if you look at the diameter of it and you go through this video, you'll realize that Table Mountain is actually the base of a tree that has been cut off.
Right.
And all these large mountains that we see today were not originally rocks. They were originally trees. And then you can start looking at the size of them. And we're not talking just one species of tree. Sometimes you'd have spongy type growth in these trees, which would give you the mushrooms. And you'd have cacti type. So you'd have different formations of rocks giving you different structures or different designs of mountains.
So how was they
Now,
turned into rock? Was that during a cataclysm?
No. Cataclysm, no.
Right.
The way, because what this guy does in this video, let me think of the name of the video. He's titled his video, "There Are No Forests on Flat Earth."
Right.
And what he says is what bothered him for so long is he could not understand why he managed to find a petrified frog. It started off with this petrified frog. And he couldn't understand, how could this frog be petrified? You leave any frog out in the open and it just disintegrates. But yet this frog petrified, and this got him going. He thought about this from a child. And he then realized the only way to petrify a frog is to cover it with soil so that there's no oxygen and it solidifies. Now, it's the same that when the major fire was put over the entire earth, they chopped down all these trees and used them to burn up the whole atmosphere. And we talk about global warming and all our bad gases we're putting into the atmosphere. Imagine burning the entire earth with these size trees. And we talk about global warming today. It's a joke.
So was they just really old trees, or was that a different species?
Yeah, from 250 million years ago, when you watch his video, 250 million years ago and before, there were no rocks on this planet.
So the trees now are just like the shoots of them old trees, basically.
Yeah, tiny little shoots.
Yeah.
So what they did is, long ago, then they scraped out, they took out all the precious metals off Earth.
Is this the Anunnaki?
I don't actually know who it is. It was before them. When you look at the size of the workings of who these guys are that worked these, let's call it these machinery. I mean, we're talking 6 miles up. What machinery do we have today that works up 6 miles? So, I mean, and the giants we talk about are not even that size. Our giants that we talk of today are not even that size. They can't even handle that. So I do not know who those species were.
So do you think?
And when you start questioning a lot of this, you start getting to some really intense questions as to who would, first of all, take out all the certain type of minerals out of the earth, chop down all the trees, and then burn the place. I mean, why would somebody do that? Then you start questioning, and I haven't worked it out. I think it's rather scary to consider why somebody would demolish an entire planet and then put a certain species to live on that wasteland. That's a very dismal thought. I don't think that's not a very nice thought to think, well, and I'm living here.
That'd just be a mining planet then, wouldn't it? Because you'd just clear all the trees and everything so you could get to the surface easier.
Yeah. Yes.
So have you looked into Graham Hancock's work? Do you know Graham Hancock?
Yes.
So this layer of soot that he talks about, is this what you mean by that they've just burnt the planet? So do you think maybe they sent down a bomb first of all just to clear all the rubble?
I can't work out at this stage which way it was done. Did they simply take out the minerals for themselves and go and use it for themselves and left everything behind, and another crowd came in afterwards and established a new form of life, another group, another existence, another creation?
It's the same people who built the pyramids who did this? No, different people, because if you look at their sizes, they're telling different stories. So no, I think they had a totally different agenda. But they just decimated the entire planet, left it barren, went off and did their own thing, and somebody else pulled in and said, right, we're going to now create a new creation, and we're living on this place. So do you believe Earth, us humans was created as slaves?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. When you look at the Sumerian
tablets, to that, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's not as fatalistic as they like to preach or like to put out. Remember, again, it's a control mechanism. You need to look at the basics and then question and think a lot. Well, we were basically designed, the human was designed to dig canals and ditches. Now that's really a mean, just to give you that little bit of information and say, well, that's your lot. That's really mean. You need to question, we also have a soul aspect. So you don't want to look at just the pure physical aspect of us having been created and through the various forms of species of creation from which we came. You know, when they talk of artificial manipulation, artificial genetics, there's not these sudden jumps, and science today knows there's not sudden jumps. It's purposeful gene manipulation. And we started from a certain place and kept coming up, and were altered and modified the whole time until we eventually ended up with a human.
So it's like, if they were so advanced, why would they not have some machines that can do what humans can do and they can be controlled easier? Or was it, maybe machines are harder to look after because then you have to maintain them and everything like that. You have to home them and set up maintenance. With humans, you just shove them in there, stick a leader in amongst them all, and then that's it. You've got a slave labour force.
You're touching on some very sensitive stuff here, and I'm wondering how much of your public are going to handle this. There's two reasons. Number one, yes, it's a self-thinking, self-operating machine. So you could say on the one hand, a machine cannot think for itself. It cannot go and look after its own terrain. You can't dump a machine and expect it to also maintain its environment.
Yeah.
You see, it's fair game. This species can be controlled. We are dictated to and told we're going to do X, Y, and Z. But you also need to clean up after your mess. Yeah. In actual fact, clean up what we've messed up, you're going to sort out afterwards. Mm-hmm. The sad part is, and this is not everybody, but it's also the surface of the earth is also a food hotspot.
Yes.
So we're also food.
Yeah, I've heard that as also, yeah. Do you mean by the,
so
do you mean the energy feeding, or do you mean actually physically eating? Or...
Physically.
Yes.
Physically. And energy as well, but energy comes about, energy is a different aspect. They're also taking our energy, but physical, you can see some of the Mayan pictures, you'll actually see some of those gods actually eating human.
Yes, I've seen that, yeah.
He's fried in a pot and he's actually eaten.
They look like so
we're but not just one species likes the taste of our meat. But don't look at it so fatalistically. Remember, while physically it seems like you're born at a certain time, this is where astrology is so wonderful. It teaches you cycles. While you might be born and you die, doesn't matter through natural disaster, through natural death, or being killed, your soul still goes on, and there's a cycle of the soul. And astrology also teaches and explains the soul. So you don't want to look at it so fatalistically as in, well, I'm going to be eaten or I'm going to be killed purposefully. You also need to consider, well, there's the soul aspect. Because energy can't die. Energy can't be killed. No. You see, the soul is also a convenient system. It's a deceptive system. You don't want to look at the life or the energy of a being as only a soul. People even battle to grasp soul, and soul has different aspects to it. It's not just a thing that houses. You've got mind is separate from that. You've got your identity, which you will carry from past lives or past memories. So it's got different aspects to it. So it's called it like a fruit with the various seeds in the center. So it's got different aspects to it. And sometimes you yourself will grow those and get rid of some seeds, put in new seeds. And that whole orange, for example, is the soul. But it's got different aspects that make up the soul.
Right. So
when you understand that astrology describes the source or the origin of energy, you will realize that certain events, certain major comings together of 2 and 3 and 4 different energies, when they come together, they will cause different things to happen in life. For example, when you make a cake, you will take different ingredients and you end up with a certain recipe. Just change those ingredients slightly and you would end up with a loaf of bread. Change it yet again and you'll end up with a pie. So these different energies, when you start understanding how you can combine them, and it's not by choice that you combine them, you just need to know when these energies are going to be at particular angles to each other. When they come together in that formation, you're going to end up with a particular picture or particular concept or particular event. So when you understand those events, you can then say, all right, I know what that's sort of gonna manifest, demonstrate. Yeah. So you're just causing different angles or different combinations. Yeah. And the same two planets will form, in astrology, there's five basic or five chief angles. And those five chief angles of the two same planets doing all five give you a totally different end result. Yeah. And those are the angles or the aspects of which you're talking.
And this would explain why the Masons are so into angles and everything.
Yeah, Masonry, not just Masonry, yes, Masonry as well. When you look at a square in Masonry, which is like the highest level for the main guy in the lodge, yeah. A square would be the square angle. That's one of the angles in astrology. You'll get conjunct, which means they're sitting right next to each other. Yes. Then you'll get sextile. Yeah. You'll get square. Yeah. You'll get a trine, and you'll get an opposite. And each of these five angles, giving different things, are put into, as you say, the Masons, when they built these churches, yeah. They knew specific angles will also either accentuate even sound, but also a certain energy when you get into the building. It will actually, churches have got a very powerful vibration that people don't understand. And it's because of these angles, yeah. Also the position on which they're built. Right. Again, that's got powerful energy. The alignment of the churches
is it aligned in the ley lines?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Energy points. Yes. And it's ironic, they're also called dragon lines, which relates to Draco or the Alpha Draconians.
Well, I'm going visiting some this next week, so make sure you look for that video. I'm going to an underground cavern, and it's called King Arthur's Lair or Labyrinth. And it's yes. They've got some stories there about King Arthur and all that. Make sure you look out for that.
King Arthur was from Inner Earth. Yeah. He's not a human.
I think that's what they're going to explain when you get there.
Yeah. Fabulous.
But I thought that anyway. You know, I'm realizing now that all these people, these great people we think of, you know, they've all come from even Jesus, probably. You know. So it's great because you've got all your history to look back at and learn. You know, from what you've been lied to. So
it's terrible how much we've got to undo.
I know.
The story of Jesus or God. There's actually three different levels there that you're talking of. When we're talking of God, there's three different levels. You're not talking of one and the same. So that's also where you've got to use your intellect and start to work out, well, which level is being described.
Yes.
The angles, the function of the angles is to show you the energy that's going to be around at that particular moment. And once you're prepared and you know what energy is going to come about, you know how to handle yourself when a situation arrives. So it's a preparatory system.
So is this anything to do with the solar eclipse? And is that where energies meeting up? And
yeah, because the solar eclipse is what we call in astrology, we'd call conjunct, where they're sitting together. Right. But you get different types of eclipses.
Yeah.
So what people don't understand, and this is also what I'd like to explain in another time with you, is when you look at the planets, how they move, we assume they just move in a straight, nice, pretty line, no deviation. But in actual fact, these planets move up and down the whole time. They don't just move in a straight line. They actually oscillate, from which you get your sine wave. This is where the sine wave, the concept of the sine wave, comes from astrology, because it oscillates the whole time. So now when you have an eclipse, you'll have it where sometimes the sun and moon are sitting furthest away from each other or sitting closest to each other. And relative to that position, you're going to have a stronger effect or a weaker solar eclipse.
Right. Wow.
I just want to describe something on mythologies here. Mythologies are past times. When we talk of past times, you need to also realize that we're obviously talking of inner earth experiences or events.
Yeah. But can I just say, no doubt, when you're waiting for one of these occurrences to occur, events, yeah.
Yes.
You'd need to use mathematics, you'd need to use astrology, you'd need to use all the esoteric arts to predict it, wouldn't you? And so that's where they all come in together. So
yes, to get a full,
so
to get a full picture, you want to apply as many of them as possible together.
Yeah, that's it.
So you want to take different groups because each one is going to give you a different science. Remember, the different guys in Inner Earth, the different clans, gave different pieces of knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's like reading a book and watching a movie. Yeah. It's the same story, but you get a totally different picture.
Yeah. But why is it?
So you want to?
Why is science just?
There are, but it's not made public.
Right.
And it's only for those. Remember, the controlling mechanism that's applied to Earth is done on purpose, because not everybody's consciousness is such that they could handle the truth or could handle the evolution or the growth of the planet. Some people are stuck on tradition. Some people are stuck. They want to keep this particular method forever.
Yes.
But that goes against nature. Nothing in nature is static. It has to move. It has to grow. It has to evolve. Yeah. So those who want to hang on to that system will fight bringing out these new energies. It's like, why have the elite not shown us themselves in their true form? It's because most people want to believe that we're the only people on Earth. And they're going to fight it. So we're actually going to damage and harm very good people, very powerful people who are coming up.
Yes. Yes. Wow.
You know, the Buddha, was he a real person? Pythagoras, was he a real person?
Yeah.
But he was more accepted in those days. They were more accepted. But if we are to see them,
Hercules, don't
yeah.
You know the story of
Hercules as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
With a viper maiden. And that's what gave birth to the Scythians. And then you also have Beowulf. The same story.
You'll have
the Beowulf, the story.
Okay, let's go to Hercules. Yeah. Hercules had 12. He had 12. What is it? He had 12 things he had to do. What's it called? 12 great things he had to do.
I don't know. I'm not too sure about that.
I don't think what the word is that he had to do. Anyway, he had to do 12 major things.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's ironic that there's 12 signs of the zodiac.
And there's 12 houses of runes.
Yeah. So when you look at what Hercules actually had to pass through, we could say on the one level it's a fable and he had to pass through these 12 events. Or was it that in actual fact he went and met all 12 clans? But we always get so involved in these different things that he had to do that we never ever question, well, at the end, what was the outcome and what was the growth and what was the point? What was the final result? Was it a betterment or was it just those 12 fancy stories that we focus on? We never go beyond that. So we're like children where we're still learning and we get enthralled with these wonderful stories where he passes through each of the 12 signs. Instead of saying, okay, those 12 signs have evolved and now they're going to start again.
Yeah.
But this time on a higher level or a higher consciousness.
Do you know what I find amazing is someone like yourself who actually found this information before the internet was about. So how did you come across the information? Like, was it someone you met or was it a book you read? Or
we humans are not just made up of physical matter. We have a soul and we have other beings from elsewhere, apart from inner earth, who have an interest in different aspects of existence. Like, you're a researcher, you're going to study particular aspects of science, particular aspects of phenomena. So you'll be focused on that. You have yet another person who's interested purely in mathematics. You'll have another person who's interested in geography. Now, these, you can call them, let's use at a level of words, these are different gods interested in different aspects. So now, once you tend to focus, you have a particular interest in one subject, you'll have outsiders who resonate. That's why the law of attraction, like attracts like. And you need to realize that apart from the physical level, you're attracting energies, beings, things, whatever you want to call it, from other places outside of this place we know, who will actually take communion with you on a non-physical level. And these beings will have conversations. Now we start talking, this person's hearing voices. This person's like seeing things. He's mad.
Yes.
We're not just physical. So my help comes from beyond the physical.
Right.
I'm what's known as a medium mystic.
Right.
Now, I've got information that comes from elsewhere, and I've been helped. And all of us really are, if we get into the soul, if we get into the deeper aspect. We're all being helped, because who's driving you? Who gives you information? Andy decides, today I'm going to study this. And somebody says to you, Andy, have you seen this? And now you're going off on a King Arthur trail. Who's helping you, and who's going to tell you where to focus the camera? And afterwards you get back and you say to yourself, but I don't recall seeing that when I looked at it. And yet your camera, you posed it at exactly the right position, and it takes a photograph of something that brings otherworldly or secret information to you. Who's doing that?
It is.
Sacrifice we always associate with blood and guts and gore.
Yes.
But sacrifice can be a very positive thing when used in other ways. We just tend to associate Jesus was sacrificed on the cross. But what if that is a concept and not a physical event, to try and explain to you, you can sacrifice one thing, like you want to get a child out of a sand pit. To sacrifice him playing in the sand pit, you're going to offer him an ice cream. So is that a negative?
Yes. Yes. No. No.
I mean, you talk about words. We talk of the core. Science teaches us that the center of the earth has a molten core, magma. We call it magma.
Yeah.
Have you actually looked at the word magma? Exactly what you're talking about, like with the word you're looking now. Magma means the modern origin of the word means squeeze. So you think, well, what's squeeze? Is it because it's squeezed in between the outer surface of the earth? But if you actually go, I just want to get the wording right. It originates from an old Norse word, knotha, K-N-O-T-H-A, which also means to press.
Yes.
So you think, okay, so what's that mean? But you need to realize from the word knotha comes the word knot, K-N-O-T, a rope we tied in a knot.
Yes.
Now, when you look at the word knot, and you'll realize how many ancient cultures have got knots, and there are so many beautiful knots that the Celts did, the Egyptians did, the Tibetans did, the Chinese, and still today, they form these elaborate, beautiful knots. When you go to a Chinese temple, you'll get some of these bracelets, and some of the knots are exquisite, they're beautiful. And you start questioning yourself, well, what's the function of a knot? An interesting thing about knots is, did you know that knots falls under the heading of mathematics?
No.
And you start thinking to yourself, why
Is that
would
because of the
knots,
angles then?
all these circles and what have you?
Yeah, the angles, yeah.
So you start questioning to yourself, why would knots fall under mathematics? And it falls under the subheading of topology. Not topography, but topology. And I want to read you the actual meaning of when you look at knot and you go and study what it actually means. It says here it's the study of the properties of space under continuous deformations. So that's the definition of a knot, and it's under mathematics. You have to question to yourself, why would something as simple as knots fall under mathematics? And then you have to question a word which they use in the dictionary, continuous deformations. And then you start questioning, magma is in inner earth, and then inner earth has this inner sun, and this inner sun has got electricity. Yes. And then it's continuous deformation. So you then start questioning yourself, what is continuously being deformed? Then you start realizing that the different aspects or different angles in astrology will cause different deformations in energy, coming from the source in inner earth. And these different deformations, which is what we call a knot, this is why you get different knots that are formed, and the different knots are going to tell you different types of energy. So knots, if you go back and you go and study it, you will realize that knots are actually mathematical formulas for different types of energy.
Right. I always thought magma came from just the two tectonic plates grinding together. Because if you look at where all the pyramids, all the volcanoes are, it's all along where the two tectonic plates meet. So so does that not add up?
Yes.
So why would they think it come from the centre of the earth then? You know, that's just to hide, obviously, what's going on, isn't it?
This is why astrology is so wonderful. Astrology will tell you that the sun is the core or the center of your being. You've got 3 outer planets and you've got 3 inner planets, and in the middle sits the sun. Mm-hmm. Now, when you look at the sun as being your core, you then realize that you've got different... When the sun is there, the sun generates energy, but we don't always understand the energy. It generates electricity, but much more than just electricity. It generates something that's able to cause major events, which we will talk as physical events, as you say, earthquakes, volcanoes. It causes these various things. But the different energy under these conditions of it being pressed or notha, it's causing different things to occur, and it starts with the sun, which is why around the time of Galileo, Kepler and all that, why they decided to make the sun the center of the universe, a heliocentric system of the stars and the planets. It's taken down to astrology where you'll realize that the sun is the core or the beginning or the source of all these events that take place. So the sun is not just simply giving off heat. Yeah. It's not just simply giving off electricity. It's not just giving off magnetism, from where we talk of the gravity or electromagnetic fields. It gives off a lot more than that, but that's just on a basic level, and that's our level of comprehension at the moment, that we just accept that this center or magma or the core of the earth is simply just giving 1 or 2 functions. No, it gives a lot more functions.
Holger, the light's gone really bad at the moment.
Yeah, I see that.
So we can finish off now. We've done longer than I expected. We've done an hour and a half nearly. So if you want, we can wrap it up here, and then we can have some things for another show.
We can do that.
If that's okay with you. That was excellent.
Yeah, to help you with your runes, there's another aspect that I want to put in, that when you realize that the core or the inner earth are the source or the origin of all these energies, you need to realize that when You do something as simple as shuffling a group of tarot cards, or in your case, when somebody shuffles the runes, if that's a language from down there, from a certain clan, when you realize that that's the source of energy, people need to understand that while we think we are churning the ocean above, this bag of runes, this box of runes, while we think we are churning it with a certain consciousness in mind, in actual fact, somebody else who's the owner of this energy is participating at the same time, which is why you don't get haphazard readings. Something else is in control of that energy to put those runes out at a certain time for that person on that day. It's all to do with the alignment of energy. You could bring in on a very mundane, basic level would be incense sticks, for example, so that you invoke another type of being.
Yeah,
and then you'd have a look, okay. And then you'd have a look, what type of incense does this originate from? What plant does it originate from? And which sign rules that particular plant? And you'll find that certain stars or constellations rule that particular flower from which that incense came, and that's going to enhance your rune readings.
Right.
At the same, certain colors. Colors is another science on its own. So when you combine again a certain type of color, so you're not going to paint your walls a different color each time you got a new client, but you could put out certain gemstones, for example, that have certain colors. You could put a certain shade over a lampshade that resonates a certain color because it's relative to that person.
Right.
And you would find your readings are totally different.
Right.
So you want to combine the energies.
Do you believe that you have to take the runes into the ley lines to energize them?
No, the runes, they say that that's how you recharge them. Yes, you can. But if you think about it, where are the ley lines getting their source of energy from?
That's what I want
So if
to know.
you
Where is that from?
From Agartha.
Right.
From that clan in Agartha.
Right.
But if no matter how old or on what format a poem is written, the author will always be the author of that poem.
Is this from a shrine the power comes from? Is there a shrine where this power gives off, or is it like a star?
It's the entire inner earth. No, it's the entire inner earth.
Right.
The entire inner earth. That's why it's the realm of the gods.
Right. And can humans go in the inner earth?
Certain ones can and certain ones can't.
Yeah.
There are criteria.
Right.
It's not for everybody. As I said, if somebody's going to come in a stranger's going to come off the street and come into your yard, are you going to allow him in, Andy?
Do they look down on us? Do they look as us like monkeys and really primitive?
No. We have a function. They have an interest in us.
Yeah.
Not always necessarily a direct interest. They might be intrigued, but no, they have. We are not a blight.
Right.
We have a function, and we would be just another manifestation of one of their energies. My website, I've just started putting it together. It's africanzodiac.co.za, because it's South African, so the ZA is there to make it easy. It's not. That's to tell you where I am. And yeah, I've just set it up. I'm busy writing articles to actually launch the site. Yes. I've got a lot of work to do on it still. So it hasn't been launched. You'll see you don't have to tell him every nitty gritty about what you want. I gave him the concept of what I'd like. He said, all right, he'll think about it. I found it afterwards, he meditated on it and he actually came up with the perfect thing of what I wanted, and I didn't need to tell him. So my website builders are dynamite. They're psychic, so it's fabulous.
That's brilliant.
But they're very practical.
Yeah. They
know what they're doing and they're busy putting it together.
That'll be great. I can't wait. And then as soon as that's done, I'll link it onto my website,